The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
He floored the accord. Reaction is still pouring in from around the world following the president's announcement the U.S. would withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. Here's MSNBC's Brian Williams.
A dark speech, and as you go through it, more like 4 or 5 dark speeches.
CNN's Fareed Zakaria.
It's a very dramatic, symbolic blow. As I've said, the United States has almost resigned from its role as leading the world.
A young Chicago resident. Dan Rather.
It's a momentous moment and a very ominous moment. History is going to punish Donald Trump for this decision. And the question is, how much will it punish our own country?
A concerned French citizen. A Brooklyn resident. A local law enforcement officer. And a gentleman from the South Pacific. But there is one man on this earth who thinks Donald Trump was right to get out of this deal. And he's here with me right now. He's Bjorn Lomborg, the president of the Copenhagen Consensus Center. All right. Was Mr. Trump right to get out of this particular deal?
Yes. Fundamentally, it would have done almost nothing for climate, and it would have been incredibly costly. So getting out doesn't actually do anything bad about climate, but it saves us a lot of money. So absolutely. But we do need another way to tackle global warming.
Yeah, and that's I find you have solutions, and I've read a lot of your stuff, and I urge you, if you're interested in finding out more about Bjorn, read up on it. Go to PragerU. You've got like a little segment up there that explains this stuff. You're about prioritizing, and it's a very interesting thing. You look and you say, if we took all this money, this is what we could do, and we could solve almost every world problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things we need to recognize. First, we're going to spend on Paris about $1 trillion to $2 trillion a year for the rest of the century. And if we did that, if we did everything we'd promised in Paris, we would reduce temperatures by the end of the century by about 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
so in a century, after spending $100 trillion, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That's not really a solution. That's just wasting money. And of course, $100 trillion can solve pretty much everything else. If you ask most people in the world, what do they care about? Well, I mean, not surprisingly, they would like their kids to stop dying from easily curable infectious diseases, get food, get education. It's simple stuff, and we know how to do it. And then, of course, we should also fix global warming, but we should fix it smartly.
Yeah. It's interesting. President Obama and others have said that if you were pulled out of this accord, you're endangering children. I would argue that by skipping the priorities and spending $100 trillion, all of those things that you mentioned actually put more people at harm. So you could tell the person who's saying, I'm for the accord, you're killing children. That's what I would do.
No. And there's certainly, I think you can say it more diplomatically.
You know me.
But basically point out, look, wouldn't you actually want to save real kids right now instead of helping them incredibly ineffectively in 100 years? So the real argument here is to bring people back and say, how are you going to solve this problem? People think that solar and wind is going to take over anytime soon. And I don't know if you know, Al Gore's own climate advisor, Jim Hansen, says, if you believe that, that's a little bit like believing the Tooth Fairy or the Easter Bunny.
Right.
No, it's not going to happen.
No.
Right now, the world gets 0.6% of its energy from solar and wind. And in 2040, a quarter of a century from now, we'll get less than 3%. So solar and wind is just trivial for the next 25 years. Now, it may solve the problem in the long run, but that's why we need to invest a lot more in research and development in green energy.
Exactly. And do you feel that private companies are probably going to figure this out before the government steps in?
Well,
you need both?
Yes, and one thing you need to remember, it's really hard to be a private company to invest in stuff that's only going to work in 25 or 40 years. Because once it starts working, your patent is run out, right?
That's true.
And that's one of the arguments. That's why we have people working on a cure for cancer in public universities. We want to fund stuff that eventually will be to the advantage of mankind, but we should do it smartly. That's what Bill Gates actually has said. I'm going to spend a lot more money on research and development so that we'll get green energy to be so cheap that everybody will want it rather than we have to push them.
Are you a nuke guy? Do you like nuclear power?
So nuclear, a lot of people like to sort of annoy environmentalists and say you should go for nuclear. Nuclear has some benefits. Certainly, if you look at, Germany just shut down all their nuclear power plants because they were, I don't know, worried about a tsunami? What the hell? They've already paid for them. They have to decommission it at some point. Right now, they were just providing CO2-free energy incredibly cheaply. That's stupid. But the problem is building new ones turn out to be fairly expensive.
Yeah, okay, I have one last question for you because we got to move on. How do you feel about the hysterical response? How can we reach consensus when one side says the other side is so evil?
Yeah. It's really, really hard to have this conversation when some people are saying this is the end of the world, and some others say it's not happening. But of course, the real point is the UN Climate Panel tells us in the 2070s, so when we've seen a lot of warming, if we don't do anything, the cost of global warming will be somewhere between 0.2 and 2% of global GDP. It's a problem. It's not the end of the world. And so, like all other problems, we should fix it coolly.
You know what the end of the world is? The end of the world. That's the problem. Asteroids, buddy. Asteroids.
It's coming?
I think so.
Oh, no.
I'm preparing. I have an asteroid suit that I wear at night. It's basically a shorty robe. That says super asteroid guy. All right. Thanks, Bjorn. Check out Bjorn Lomborg's work. It's amazing. Copenhagen Consensus. Go to PragerU. And your mind will expand. All right, still ahead. First, there was the freshman 15, and now some celebrities say they're putting on the Trump 10. How dumb is that?